Right, we're going to look at the structure of the paper and the format of the paper, and some important points that Edexcel want you to be aware of. First thing is the equipment you need to bring. You should have with you black pens. Don't bring blue pens to write with, it must be in black. Ballpoint pens or ink is fine, and maybe bring a couple of spares. 30cm ruler, set square, the calculator that you're used to using so that you can do pounds of 10, and you can swap between degrees and radians without a problem, and a protractor. You don't need to use a pencil, therefore you don't need a rubber, and you certainly can't use Tipp-Ex. So if you just stick to a black pen all the way through, if you make a mistake, just put a line through it, and then write your answer below. Okay, now the time available is 1 hour 30 minutes, so 90 minutes in total, and you've got to get 80 marks. So you've got just over a minute per mark. So if you stick to a minute per mark, that should leave you with 10 minutes at the very end, and you should be able to then go back, have a look at any questions you couldn't do, check that you've put units on all your answers where they need a unit, and so on. There is one point to be made about here. It says you must have a ruler for this paper. Not every paper has this. This is a sort of a clue in a way that one of the questions is going to require a ruler, and it could be that you need to do a scale drawing. It could be that you're going to have to draw a tangent to a curve, or actually measure something if it's to scale. Sometimes this has been completely left blank. Sometimes it's been a protractor that you've needed for measuring an angle, say between two vectors. So as long as you bring all this equipment with you, just to have a glance at that and just see if anything's expected to be used during the course of the exam. Now the paper is broken down into two parts. The 80 marks are broken down into 10 marks for section A, which is the multiple choice section, and 70 marks for section B. We'll have a look at section B in a minute. For section A, all of these questions are multiple choice. There are 10 of them, 10 questions, and each has got 4 options. You answer one of the 4. And it tells you up here to select your answer, put a cross in the box. So put a cross here. If you make a mistake, you change your mind, put a horizontal line through it, and then put your answer in a different box. Okay, if we go on to section B, which makes up 70 marks, ranges from short questions, which, like this one, there are only 2 marks available, up to questions where there might be, say, 12 or 13 marks. So there's quite a wide range of marks available. Where you see a horizontal line like this, it's basically telling you to put your answer above that point. In this case, you're going to be adding to this diagram. But if you make a mistake anywhere here, you can obviously use this space. The main thing, though, is not to write outside of this line. There's a border all the way around the paper, and you have to make sure you're inside that border. And the reason for that is that the paper gets chopped up and scanned, and it's possible that if you've written something in here, then it won't be seen by the person marking it. If you need access to equations, they are all at the back of the paper, and this is the same list that you've got in your past paper pack. You've got data at the top, most of which you don't need for Unit 1, it's just the value of little g, acceleration due to gravity, 9.81, but the rest of it you don't need to use. And then below that you've got your equations, and I would recommend that you learn these off by heart, because it will make your revision so much quicker. If you haven't got to keep looking up the meaning of the equation, then maybe you're forgetting what the terms mean. So commit it to memory now. If you really do forget on the day, well, at least you've got a reference there, but I'd say better to not have to use it. Right, in section B you'll also come across some questions which have got, like this one here for question 12, this has got an asterisk at the top, this is a question where you're going to be assessed for quality of written communication. Now, it says down at the bottom here you've got 4 marks available. That means you do have to make 4 separate physics points, and it's recommended that whenever you've got to do a question like this, you always put your answers in bullet points. So each bullet point for each separate point you're making. As long as your spelling of technical vocabulary and your grammar and your punctuation is good, so there's nothing ambiguous in your answer, then you'll get all 4 marks. But if there's anything unclear, they will take off one of the marks. So you could go down to 3, even if you'd actually made all the points. There must be if there's something there they didn't understand, then you'll lose that mark. Now, one problem that Edexcel have identified is that, quite understandably, most students start off looking at question 1, the start of the multiple choice section. And unfortunately, this section, although it's only worth 10 marks, people are often spending way more than the 10 minutes that they should be spending on it. And so Edexcel have suggested that instead of starting off on question 1, you actually just go straight onto section B and leave the multiple choice to the end, so that if you can't do 1 or 2 of them, well, they're only worth 1 mark anyway per question. So it's a matter of choice, really. If you're happy to start off in the multiple choice and you're quite good at keeping an eye on the time, then you shouldn't really have any problem. But if you're worried about getting caught up in a question, then maybe it would be best to go to question 11 and just work your way through the longer questions, which are, each question is usually on one topic only. So what I would do is, as you go through the paper, if you can't do a question, if you look at a question and you think there's any doubt in your mind at all, I would just put a circle around the question and move on to the next one. And then by the time you get to the very end of the paper, you just quickly go back and look for all the circled questions and just go back to them again. But it's pretty straightforward, and I think if you follow those instructions, I think you should have no problem.